Welcome to the Farmers Union Insurance pregame show. My name is Lauren Hill, and I'm joined here with Edward Nieman and Ken Oda. We are obviously in different locations here because the Minotauros have traveled this weekend to Mason City, Iowa, to play the North Iowa Bulls. So, Edward, obviously, we haven't played yet, but you have been able to see their barn a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, great facilities here in North Iowa. Obviously, the rink is super nice here, and a building that the Toros had a lot of success in last year. And I know the returners on this team are going to look to continue that same trend. I know we're going to get into that, but definitely good to be here and good for another weekend series here with the Toros.
Awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
it'll be the best view you get outside of the Mesa. I think in the division, it's a nice setup for the broadcast as well.
Yeah, I've heard some good things about it being pretty. So hopefully that's the only plus that they have this weekend. But we'll be starting with our Farmers Union Insurance recap of last weekend. So let's look back at our weekend against St. Cloud last week.
Yeah, guys, and a really nice rebound for the Toros. Obviously, Friday night 3-1 loss, but there was a lot of momentum in the second half of that game. Toros were able to carry that momentum into Saturday night, and Ken, the fans were really into it on Saturday night. An early goal. Toros never looked back and really made the Mesa a tough place to play for the Norsemen. I know they're going to be looking to continue that same trend. Toros outshoot the Norsemen in both games last weekend, and really a lot of good takeaways, especially in that Saturday night contest.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it Friday night. Toro fans were just looking for an excuse to make some noise. Toros rectified that on Saturday, got one early, and then didn't really look back.
As we mentioned, Toros get the Saturday night win 4-1 over the Norsemen, outshot St. Cloud 29-27, and then Friday night Toros fall 3-1. But we mentioned a third period goal by John Small really got the building back into it and really got the Toros some momentum that carried into Saturday night. So the Toros, as we mentioned, a lot to build off of and an opportunity here to do it this weekend against against North Iowa.
Exactly. We kind of touched on that in our show this past week, Edward, but keeping that momentum going, obviously, from, again, that Saturday night win, moving it into North Iowa on that 9.5 hour car ride, a little longer for the boys since they stopped in practice. But hopefully that all that momentum from winning will translate into this weekend in North Iowa. But now turning our attention back to tonight's game. Let's look at our Noodles numbers brought to you by Noodles and Company of Minot. So the Minotauros are currently standing at a 4-3-0 record, while North Iowa is at a 4-4-0 record. Head to head last season, we won every single game we played against them, 8-0, and they obviously, with that, they lost 0-8 against us last season. We have not yet seen them this season, so this will be a very interesting head-to-head matchup this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can expect quite as easy of a opponent as we saw last year. You know, Lauren and I talked about it quite a bit yesterday on All Access. Just the pure domination, right? Toros outscored North Iowa 34-5 over the 8 games last year. That's just crazy numbers. Jack O'Hannison had 7 goals himself against North Iowa, whereas, as I mentioned, North Iowa only scored 5 against the Toros. So Jack O'Hannison basically swept the season series. You know, that's video game type stuff. I wouldn't expect that this year. And we're seeing a better North Iowa team, 4-4-0, like you said. They're scoring 2.75 goals a game. Big difference, though, is they're only allowing 2.75 a game. Last year, they were allowing almost 5 goals a game. So they've cut that, just about in half, or at least taking a third of the goals off that they were giving up last year.
Yeah, again, and perhaps a North Iowa team coming in with a lot of momentum. You could say they've already eclipsed, I want to say, over a third of their wins of last year, and then coming off a win over Aberdeen, and it was Aberdeen's first loss of the season. So right now, I think it's going to be a North Iowa team that we know is always physical, is always ready to play, but a little momentum at their back now coming off a win against Aberdeen. And just looking at some of the Noodles numbers as well, special teams, we talk about it all the time. Toros could have an advantage here, especially with the penalty kill. Toros penalty kills first in the division, but then you look at North Iowa ranking towards the bottom at 6th in the division. So if the Toros can get on the extra man advantage and take advantage of that, I think the Toros are going to be in a really good position to get on the board, especially early, and get some early momentum in the series.
Yeah, and then you flip that special teams matchup. The Toros have the best penalty kill, not just in the division, but in the league, 94.74%. Mm-hmm. On the power play, North Iowa 1 for 33, which is 0.03%, dead last in the league. So, special teams wise, Toros should have the edge coming in, but of course, no power play is ever going to go sub 1% on the season. So you expect at a certain point to bounce back. So the Toros need to make sure that bounce back doesn't start this weekend.
Yeah, and even added to that, just the absurd amount of penalty minutes that they have compared to us. We've currently racked up about 44 penalty minutes, while they've totaled about 112, averaging about 14 penalty minutes per game, while we average about 6 per game. We touched on that yesterday in our weekend preview, me and Ken, about just that number is crazy, and the fact that they even had a player, I don't want to pronounce his or get it wrong, so I'm going to fact check it. Jackson Schouten. Yeah, Jackson Schouten totaled in one call 30 minutes of penalty time. That's yesterday that he may not be seen this weekend, especially, or maybe not Friday against the Minotauros.
We did get word he is suspended for the whole weekend, but that 30 penalty minutes, it does skew their numbers a little bit, right? This early in the season, 30 penalty minutes, that's over a quarter of the penalty minutes they've taken overall on the season. So, that initial 14-minute mark per game comes down quite a bit if you take 30 out of it. 82 penalty minutes over 8 games is basically 10 a game, right? So, which is still almost double what the Toros are taking. It's just 6.29 as the least penalized team in the division.
Go us. Woo. And going on to our Minotauros Booster Club players to watch, I'm going to throw it to Ken to talk about Davin Nichols, who I think is an excellent choice for this, especially with what we've seen in past years with just how the Minotauros and North Iowa tend to play a little more rough with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, whether it was a few years ago, Houston Cartman against North Iowa, or last year, Chad Muller. It seems like whenever these games get a little lopsided, North Iowa is going to be physical. They're going to have a lot of stuff after the whistle. We've seen a lot of fights. I would say over the last 3 years, a majority of the Toros fights have come against North Iowa. Not saying Davin Nichols is going to drop the gloves, but we know he's certainly not afraid to. And I think one of the guys who brings size would be a guy to keep an eye on this weekend. Not that the smaller guys can't go, but North Iowa always seems to have some bigger bodies. So I think Davin Nichols against a physical team, going to the front of the net, doing the hard work, is a guy to keep an eye on. And yeah.
Yeah, Ken, I think that's an excellent choice as well. We always talk about the speed of the Toros team, but Davin Nichols is the one guy that I think can really show that advantage, at least in the physical department for the Toros. As for me, I don't know if it's cheating or not. You can tell me, but I'm taking Jack O'Hannison. You mentioned earlier, Ken, 7 goals, I should say, against his North Iowa team last year.
5 assists as well to go with that, yeah.
5 assists, so really effective all over the ice against his North Iowa team. But I think one thing that I want to draw us towards is the fact that he's got 1 goal and 8 assists on the year so far. So not exactly picking up a ton of goals early in the season, although we saw last weekend in St. Cloud, he hit the post numerous times, both Friday and Saturday night. He's going to come into a building where he's very comfortable in putting the puck in the back of the net. And you look at the season just as a whole, I think this is one of those weekends that could be a launching point for O'Hannison in terms of getting on the board and getting goals in the back, or getting pucks in the back of the net.
Not going to lie, Edward, I was thinking about going with O'Hannison. I just thought it was too obvious with the numbers he put up against North Iowa last year, and also just 6 assists over the last 4 games for O'Hannison since we moved into divisional play. So he's been heating up with points, and now going against the team that he's been killing all last year. Yeah, definitely an easy choice there. And then Lauren, you've got someone as well tonight.
Yeah, I usually don't write in this, but as we were talking about this, I just added in a note. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong about this. I don't even know if he will be playing this weekend. I'm assuming he will be. Aiden Dress, he's new to our team literally as of this week. And he came from Amarillo, and he's already scored 3 goals this season. Me and Edward had the joy of being able to interview him earlier this week, which you may or may not be seeing clips of that this week or next week, just depending. And he's very excited to be here. He's very excited to keep that momentum up of what he was already doing and then bringing it here. He has all positive things to say about this team. He's more excited to be here than he figured he would be. He said that the play style is very up to what he wants to be doing and all this. So I can see him continuing that 3 goal streak that he had in Amarillo and just continuing it here. And I think he'll just be an exciting person to watch just in general, obviously, because one, he is new, and two, he brings already potential success from a previous team to this team.
Well, and
Yeah, Lauren,
6'3", sorry,
Go ahead.
I would say 6'3", 200 pounds. We talked about
Yeah.
size and strength against this North Iowa team. He's certainly bringing an element that, as much as I love guys like John Small, Ian Spencer, Jack O'Hannison, they're not the biggest guys. So, the Toros have plenty of speed and skill. And I think adding another big body, someone who can go to the front of the net will help, some of those nights where we've seen the Toros offense struggle, help them get some of those dirtier goals.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going with that, Kenny. He's a bigger body, but a guy who's also not afraid to put the puck on net. Through 22 games last year with Rockland, over a point per game average, 24 total points on the season. So a really nice medley, I think, in terms of size, but also in play style of not being afraid to put pucks on net and get in front of the net, make an impact.
I agree. I'm glad y'all like my pick. Good. All right. Moving on to the keys to the game, brought to you by Home Key Group. Ken, what are your keys to tonight's game?
3 keys for tonight's game. I think the first one is the penalty kill, right? You look at the numbers. I talked about it during Noodle's numbers. North Iowa 1 for 33. The Toros have had a ton of success, 34 goals in 8 games last year against these guys. There's maybe going to be a little bit of a mental block that the Toros have to get by, where North Iowa was so bad last year. They're going to look at this and go, hey, our penalty kill, we can go get some shorthanded goals this weekend. And yeah, the numbers say the North Iowa's power play is not very good, but I think a key to keeping that power play down is to play a quieter penalty kill where you're not worried about trying to get offense. Just take the 2 minutes, get pucks, fire them the length of the ice, get your change. And, if a chance is there, sure, take it, but don't go out looking for shorthanded chances. My second key to the game is to stay above the fray. Again, when games aren't going North Iowa's way, they like to get physical. They like to try and get you off your game outside of the whistles. Toros need to skate away from that. We don't want to see, we saw last year plenty of suspensions come out of weekends where the Toros played North Iowa. You don't want that. You've got first place undefeated Bismarck coming to Minot next week. You don't want to do something in these 2 games that's going to take a key player out of the lineup against Bismarck next week. And then my final key, stay in the now. That is, and to that I mean, North Iowa was very, very bad last year. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I'm not trying to pick on them. You look at all the statistics, the Toros need to wipe that from their mind, right? The 11 guys who are back from last year need to look at this. This is a 4-4-0 team that we're taking on this weekend. It's not going to be 34-5 over 8 games this year. It's just, most likely not going to be. If it is, great, but realistically, they need to wipe last year out of their mind and not look at it this weekend like it's going to be point night to night, and that they don't have to play defensively responsibly. They don't have to do the little things, because A, theirs is a better team. If you get away from doing the responsible thing, they can beat you. And B, we saw it at times last year. You would play North Iowa, you develop some bad habits, and then that next game, the next week, you'd spend the first period trying to get out of those bad habits. So forget about last year and remember that you're taking on a good hockey team tonight.
Can't agree more. I think that's definitely something that people or teams focus on, especially when they do so well the year before, and you look back and you're like, well, we had them last year, so we can do it again. No, it changes every year. You got to put yourself in that mindset of no one is better than me, and I need to prove that again, that we are good again. And we will be back after this commercial break.
Lucky for us, life is full of choices, big and small. They define us, make us who we are. And when it comes time for you to choose, a car, home, your next big adventure, or start a new business, Farmers Union Insurance has the variety of coverage options to protect each perfect moment. Farmers Union Insurance. Contact your local Farmers Union Insurance agent today.
Minotauros fans, it's time to take out your phones and pull up the Taros mobile app for your chance to win prizes throughout tonight's game. Starting with our Four Bears Sportsbook over-unders. We have, first one is Taros' first period goals. Are we going over or under 0.5?
I'll kick it off. I'll take the over. As much as I was just talking about how North Iowa was a better team than last year, I think getting the Toros out in Mason City, they got there last night. I think they're going to be ready to go. And the way we saw them close out that game against St. Cloud, I think the guys are in a good spot. And I think they'll pop one early.
Yeah, Ken, I'm going to take the under on this one, maybe just to be different. But, Toros are on their longest road trip of the year. Wouldn't be surprised. There has been some good goaltending with this North Iowa team, so I wouldn't be surprised it takes a little time for the Toros to get adjusted on the ice. And maybe that just comes with a scoreless first period on both sides.
I'm going to go with the over here just because I want the game to be really exciting. So I'm going to go with the over, as well as the fact that I just feel like watching the two games last week and just how the first one or the second one started on Saturday. I feel like that energy is just going to be brought into that arena tonight. And I'm just going over. Our next one is total fighting majors called. Are we going over under 1.5?
I'll take the under tonight. I think for one, Jackson Schouten being out of the lineup definitely diminishes the chances that we see a fight. But I think a big part of it last year was North Iowa, as we said, was not a very good team. We blew them out pretty much every game. So yeah, we saw some fights. Like Edward said, I'm expecting a closer game tonight. So I think we probably don't see a fight tonight. Wouldn't necessarily rule one out entirely for the weekend, but I think tonight probably not. So I'm going to take the under.
I'll take the over on this one. I just think, knowing the history of these two teams, coupled with the play style of North Iowa being a physical team, I think we'll see a couple of those and just that trend continue into this year from last year.
Yeah, I'm going over for this one. I don't know too much about North Iowa, but I have been shown some things that happened last year. And if those things are held to be true, I believe that this team is a little more physical than most are. So I'm going to go with over just because, again, you throw out that 34-5 record of last year or outscoring them 34-5. They're angry. So I'm going to go with over. And our last one is total Taros goals for the night. Are we going above or below 3.5?
I'm going to go over on this one, Lauren. I talked about potentially seeing a scoreless first period. I do think the Toros will eventually find their rhythm second and third period. And I think the speed of this Toro team is going to wear on the size of North Iowa. And I think that's going to be the difference tonight. And wouldn't be surprised if Toros pick up a nice win here in the first half of this weekend series against North Iowa.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between on this one. I have a feeling that tonight's going to be a closer scoring game rather than tomorrow. It may be a bigger differential there. I'm going to go for under. I think tomorrow is going to be the bigger scoring game.
And I'll go over on this one. You talk about North Iowa being a better team, but ultimately I'm going to go over until they show that they can keep the puck out of the net against us. I'm going to take the over. And that'll bring us to our McDonald's Toros trivia question. We talked about the style of play with North Iowa, which Toro posted a team record 45 penalty minutes in a single game against North Iowa. Was it Chad Muller, Kobe Volk, Houston Cartman, or Ben Johnson? Any guesses?
I want to go first for this one. I have heard a couple of these names been spoken in the office. As y'all know, I'm not too versed in the past of this team in hockey and whatnot, so I do not know the answer to this, but I've heard the name Chad Muller and Houston Cartman. I'm gonna go with Cartman. That seems like somebody that would get in a tussle. So I'm going with that.
Yeah, similar thing with me, just a shot in the dark. Haven't been around this organization for all that long, but I'll take Ben Johnson. Just I guess, as a lucky guess.
All right. Well, we'll see if you guys are right later in tonight's game. But yeah, that'll bring us to any final thoughts before we wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I think my main thing, here this weekend is obviously longest road trip of the year for the Toros, coming off a win, so definitely some momentum. You want to take care of business this week, and I know the Toros don't want to look ahead of this weekend, but on the other side, they do have a Bismarck team that is on fire and what will come off a quick turnaround. So I think the Toros are going to want to take care of business this weekend and head back to Minot with 2 wins.
Yeah, I agree. It's a long bus ride home. It's a really long bus ride home when you lose. So I think it's a chance here for the Toros to pick up some points and then set themselves up. With the win last Saturday night, you take 2 in North Iowa. You're on a win streak headed in against Bismarck, and we'll see if they're still on a streak as well. They're taking on Watertown this weekend, so it'll be an interesting matchup there. And then Thursday night here at the Mesa, potentially undefeated Bismarck team against the Toros for a little bit of a rematch of the Central Cup Finals.
All right. Well, that will do it for the Farmers Union Insurance pregame show for tonight, and we will see you again tomorrow for the pregame show for tomorrow's game.